Shetty.
The one, the only Jay Shetty.
We love a special guest.
Very special guest. One of our most popular episodes of last year.
Yeah,
if not the most, I think.
The beloved. We should. That's how I'm going to refer to you.
Yes.
The beloved Jay Shetty. Thank you for coming back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me back. We had so much fun last time, so I'm looking forward to today.
So much fun. It's great to have you. We are in awe of you and your success. I think that's something you came in the first time, and I don't want to be the guy. I don't want to. I'm a cynic on everything.
I loved it.
Yeah, and
we got along though.
That's the thing. I go. I like
surprisingly
this guy.
well. Yeah.
I walked away, but you come at things in ways that I wouldn't come at them. I come at with like I'm the gremlin hater,
the like
troll.
I would say like the more like cynical male point of view.
Right, and sometimes I hear some of the you're such a calming, positive influence that that you can tell people are just happy to have you in their life. Right?
I hope so.
Is that what it is? You think they're just happy that you're the friend they'd go to when they're hungover, and you'd be like, it's gonna be fine. This is gonna wear off. We're gonna have some bacon, egg, and cheeses. You'll be good.
I mean, talking about that, I remember being the sober friend early on. I was in Spain with some of my friends, and everyone was completely hammered apart from me. This is when I'd chosen to start my, stopping drinking alcohol when I was going out. And all of my friends, I was trying to tell them that some bad stuff was going on and that we should leave this club that we were at. And they were like, you're the worst friend ever. We're having the best time. You're ruining it. And so I'm actually used to being that friend when everyone else is drunk.
You're ruining the party.
I'm ruining the party because I'm trying to protect everyone from themselves.
So you don't drink?
No, I haven't drunk for years now. Yeah, it's been,
How many years?
I think it would be 15 years now.
Right. Was it not a big part of your life before? Or?
It was a part of my life in the sense of I love drinking games. I love the competitive aspect of drinking. So
What game?
Being out, Ring of Fire was something we played a ton of when we were kids.
What's Ring of Fire?
So in London, I guess everyone starts drinking quite early too. So we started at like 14. And so the guys would get together. We'd play this game called Ring of Fire where you have this big pitcher in the middle that's left in the middle. You all get a glass of beer each, as far as I remember this. The pitcher in the middle is surrounded by cards, playing cards laid face down, and every card has a different meaning. So when you pick up the card, you have to do a certain action, and the last person to do it has to drink. Or the card tells you that you have to drink first, or you have to tell a joke, and if someone doesn't laugh, then you have to drink. Like there's all these.
That sounds really fun.
It's so good.
Right.
And then every time you keep drinking more. And then my favorite one was there's one where like the more fingers you can hold towards someone's glass of beer, the more sips that they have to take and things like that. And so it's a super fun competitive game. And I'm probably explaining it badly, and Google will probably do a better job.
Do you still play the game without drinking?
Do you know what? I've thought about that. I've really thought about how we could make that fun. But I think it was partly the fact that you get delirious after,
I'm just
6
thinking,
beers.
I've never heard someone be like, I was in it for the games.
Yeah.
Like if they're at AA.
I mean, I could see that.
Flip cup.
I mean, you kind of want to
was the gateway.
participate.
Right.
I played flip water with many of my pregnant friends.
Yeah.
It's almost as fun.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I just love I love sports. I love competition. I love games.
I love games.
Love it. Well, everyone go listen to Jay's podcast On Purpose. It's out. What you have, the guest list is something that you can't not acknowledge. Who's the guest that you were like, I can't believe this?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm glad we're getting into this as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well on who you felt that, because it's
Jay Shetty.
I
That's
feel
what
it.
we thought.
Right.
That was he's coming back? What? Okay.
I had such a great time. I think so. I want to acknowledge that, when you launch a podcast, and you guys know this, when I launched or when I was coming up with the idea, it was so hard to book anyone because people had never heard of it. There was no stats. There was no data. You're trying to get someone to understand that you're going to create this safe space, and people don't get it. And so I remember that day, which was 5 years ago now. The podcast is 5 years old. But I want to acknowledge the first guest that made me feel that way was when Kobe Bryant came on in 2019. And that was the first year the podcast had come out. His team had reached out because his team loved what we were doing on the show, and they wanted Kobe and I to connect and meet.
His team reaches out. Explain that to Joe, Ohio, who's sitting in their car.
So this is
Columbus,
like his
on their way to not a team.
everyone who's in his life. So whether it's his assistant, whether it's a publicist, whether it's different people who had a role in his creative company that he had. So employees, team members, and they'd mentioned to him that they thought it would be cool for us to connect. And so when they reached out, that to me was huge. And to have that in year one, that was a huge honor that year that he decided to do that. So that was pretty amazing.
It's a little bit like dominoes. Like, Kobe did it. He felt safe.
Absolutely.
Then everyone, if Kobe did it.
Absolutely.
It's a little bit like that.
Yeah, so I got to give him a lot of credit for giving that opportunity for
and
me.
since then, you've had everyone from like Kendall Jenner to Michelle Obama, which is, you must just be like, people you get to speak to.
I am pinching myself all the time. I'm feeling really, really nervous walking into those rooms. And while I'm preparing it, I'm feeling, every bit of imposter syndrome that you possibly can when you're doing this. So yeah, I feel super grateful every day. And yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, Kendall was, you spoke about Kendall. I think that was a really important one in our journey of the show. She came on at a time when her episode just brought so many new listeners to our universe. And I always thank her for that, because it was amazing that people were like, oh, we haven't really heard her speak that much and not for that long. And I think what she shared was so powerful and insightful. Like that clip's gone viral like 1 million times of her talking about how she thinks about her younger self, and she has a picture of herself at the mirror and some practice that she'd done with her therapist. And so I think, I'm really grateful to everyone who trusts me and trusts our space and comes on, because it takes a lot for that person. And I want to acknowledge that. It's never easy to open your heart and open your mind in that way. And so, yeah, each of those people that you've mentioned have made massive shifts. Kevin Hart came on, and that was, so much fun. Again, he had this amazing audiobook, which people don't know Kevin Hart for audiobooks, but his audiobook is amazing. It's called Monsters, and he talks about all the monsters that we deal with inside of our mind. So it's philosophical and comedic, and he's obviously reading it. And it's hilarious. And, being able to dive into him from the perspective of monsters and the monsters he has inside of him, it was, it's a spectacular conversation. So I think, all of these guests have made it easy for me, and I'm really grateful.
What do you think it is about your show that like these people, again, like Kendall Jenner doesn't do it. People aren't doing like, interviews constantly. What do you think it is about your show that just makes them want to do your show?
I think that all podcasts have a really unique offering, right? Like I think people go on a podcast. Like when I came on yours for the first time, it's because from what I'd seen and from what I was hearing from my team, everyone's like, Jay, they're going to get into stuff that no one else is going to ask you, right? This podcast is going to ask you questions. When you were talking about being cynical, my team had already said that there's going to be a version. Oh, my team is my podcast. My podcast producer, who is a huge fan of the show. And she's like, I think you're going to get asked questions that you wouldn't get asked anywhere else. Okay. And so that's exciting for me, because I also don't want to have the same conversation. I want to have different conversations. Right. That's why I came here. And so I think people coming on purpose because they know that there's going to be a safe space to explore depths of themselves that maybe isn't right on other platforms. And so I'm hoping we've created a space where people can talk about their challenges, their flaws, their imperfections, the stresses of life, the perplexities they've had with childhood trauma, their personal mental health journeys, in a way that is relevant, accessible, and practical for people. I
like the perspective, and that's usually where I come to with everything I hear from you. Is like, I like the road you took, because I'm looking at that and I go, like, you're like basically, oh, this show could open a door in my brain that I don't mind opening, but I didn't even know was there before.
Exactly.
I have that with, like, if someone comes up to me and it's like, I have a note for you for a joke I heard you do, would you? And it could be anybody. And I'm like, sometimes it's like an old dad who's going to tell me a Borscht Belt joke, and I'm going to have to he's going to be exhausting. But sometimes someone will say something, I don't even know what it's going to lead to me thinking, or a story that I've never thought of. So I understand that, where you're like, oh, I'm up for the game of, oh, okay, where will this go? But I know it's going to be safe and a little bit,
Totally. And every podcast, I think, plays to that, right? Like if you want to show a certain part of your personality, I think there's so many podcasts to do that differently on. And so we're just trying to cater to this side.
To that point, I have a question, if that's okay. What do you hate?
That's
We want to
so
know if you've
funny.
ever had a bad day.
Yeah, I want to.
Oh, yeah,
I want to hear cynical Jay Shetty.
right.
I want miserable, horrible day.
Who do you hate?
Who do you hate? What do you hate? When's the last
That's
time
not
you?
on the list of approved questions.
Well, I want to know. Like, I want that Jay Shetty, and I listen because it's within us all. But was there a Is there? When's the last time?
Do you get triggered?
Yeah.
So I'll give you a bit of background because I'm not
And it's
trying
not
to.
a very monk way to go. I get it.
No, so I'll give a bit of background. So anger and hatred have generally not been a part of my psychological approach because I saw a lot of it growing up.
Okay.
And so I made notes growing up going, I won't demonstrate anger in that way. I won't express hatred
Where did
in
you
that
see
way.
it growing up?
Saw it in my own home, saw it in my school, saw it in my extended family. Like I saw it very, very up close in a very extreme form. And I made a pact with myself that anger was not something that I was going to play with because I saw the ramifications it had with other people.
Do you think you can do that with anger? Like, there's people out there that I'm sure, like, I get angry. I would love to say you don't get angry and go, I guess I'm never angry anymore. Like, I think isn't anger like a sneeze and is it like a cough?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying getting angry is bad. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't get angry and it's not a natural emotion. I think it's an emotion that I kind of negotiated with very early on because I saw what it did, at least in the world that I grew up in. I've had bad days, so that I can relate to.
Thank God.
Let's
You don't
start.
express them in probably the.
Let's start
the
there.
way-
I think if there's anything that does trigger me and does upset me, and which is funny because what I'm about to say is me breaking my own rule, but it upsets me when we don't give others the benefit of the doubt. So when I see people not giving other people the benefit of the doubt or giving them space, it triggers me. But the funny thing is that means I'm not giving that person the benefit of the doubt. So
goes
then I go,
around and
so then I go, oh great, like and that's what happens. And so of course I'm a human. I get triggered. I get upset. I have a bad day. I think the biggest thing for me when I'm having a bad day is probably when I feel that someone in my life is being unnecessarily targeted in their own life, dealing with pain, dealing with stress, dealing with pressure, some pain's coming at them that they don't deserve, that I don't understand. And so that kind of stuff.
Do you have an
really gets to
example
me.
of a time where someone in your life was you felt wrongfully targeted?
or yourself.
Is there- or yourself. Yeah. Do you read things about yourself? Do you see things and you go, because
We're all
sit
online.
here
Yeah.
and we know, and what we have to do constantly, and again, we have to the thing that is, I think it's the worst podcast topic, and we do it all the time because it's like catnip. It's right there
Feedback.
for you to do. Is responding to feedback when 99% of it, like Jay, I'm sure you get messages. You've changed my life. And you probably get messages that are like, I've gotten messages that bring you to tears. You go, oh my God, this was me talking about my farts was not supposed to make you feel better about a death in your family.
Yeah.
And you get those messages and you probably get 99% of those. And then you get the one.
Yeah.
And you're like, you just want to grab them and go, again, benefit of the doubt. How did you come to this such hateful space from when my goal was positivity?
Right. How do you take yourself out of it?
And I think, don't you feel though, and I will talk about it, but don't you feel though that over time you've recognized that it's part of the job. Like you've accepted that it's part of the job. So for example, let's take Michelle Obama. We did this interview with Michelle Obama, which was huge moment. Huge moment for me. So grateful. Like you said, 99% of the comments are like, this is interviews, incredible and everything. And then at the same time, you have a lot of people going like, why would you sit down with her because of their political beliefs? Or like, Jay, you sold out. Or, why would you do this? And what I found is that, again, me giving that person the benefit of the doubt, that often that remark is based on something historical far before me.
Right.
And has pretty much very little to do with me and an expectation of me that I'll never live up to, in that I'm always going to do things that's going to upset someone. And I've kind of come to terms with that. And on the other side, I've found that if you actually look at the comment section of people who've actually watched the video, the comment section is completely different. Like people have actually watched the interview, listened to the words, instead of the 30-second clip or whatever it may be. If they've watched the YouTube version, you're seeing like completely transformed people. Even people saying, I don't agree with the politics, but this interview helped me with this.
It
And
even
so-
annoys me that they have to say that. Like, it annoys me that, the person, that person, I usually, it's like, you must be an expert now because you were able to see beyond your own initial thoughts on someone. How could someone, do
you ever block anyone?
Yeah.
So yes, I would. Yes, my
Stars are just like us.
Yeah, my personal rule is I'm happy for someone to leave any honest opinion of theirs as long as they're still following me. But if someone unfollows me and wants to leave a comment, then and it's hateful, then that's a comment that
kind of your
wouldn't go.
thing too.
So I think that's a fair step.
Feedback from anyone who doesn't follow.
No, if you don't
I'll take the feedback, but I feel like if you're saying, Jay, I'm had it with you, I'm unfollowing, and then you've unfollowed and you've left other hateful comments, to me, then it's like, well, we're not in the same community anymore, we're in the same space. But if someone's following me and they want to leave lots of comments that tell me feedback or things they don't like, I will leave it up there because I still consider them a part of our community.
They haven't left the conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
I couldn't be more excited to share something truly special with all you tea lovers out there. And even if you don't love tea, if you love refreshing, rejuvenating, refueling sodas that are good for you, listen to this. Radhi and I poured our hearts into creating Junie sparkling tea with adaptogens for you because we believe in nurturing your body, and with every sip, you'll experience calmness of mind, a refreshing vitality, and a burst of brightness to your day. Junie is infused with adaptogens that are amazing natural substances that act like superheroes for your body to help you adapt to stress and find balance in your busy life. Our Super 5 blend of these powerful ingredients include green tea, ashwagandha, acerola cherry, and lion's mane mushroom, and these may help boost your metabolism, give you a natural kick of caffeine, combat stress, pack your body with antioxidants, and stimulate brain function. Even better, Junie has 0 sugar and only 5 calories per can. We believe in nurturing and energizing your body while enjoying a truly delicious and refreshing drink. So visit drinkjunie.com today to elevate your wellness journey and use code ONPURPOSE to receive 15% off your first order. That's drinkjuni.com. And make sure you use the code ONPURPOSE.
I kind of think of social media as my party.
Yes.
And if you come in and, I block people even if they're following.
You block people just because it's Tuesday.
Right. I randomly go through.
I like this analogy with the party. I have a similar one with the house.
Well, I think of it as like, this is my party. The music's playing. You have walked in. There are people here dancing. I don't care how many. I don't care. But people are happy to be here. And you came in and go, I hate this music. Let me lead you to the door.
Yeah.
We're going to keep the music playing. But you got to leave. You don't want to be
Right.
here. It's okay. Goodbye.
Right. So
Ta-ta.
I'm okay with someone being at the party and saying, I don't like the music. They
Right.
can stay. But it's the person who goes, all right, I don't like the music. I'm leaving. But then they still want to have their opinion be heard. And
They're yelling through the window.
Sounds like my mom.
Hey! Right.
So yeah.
This is a dating podcast. You've written a dating book, 8 Rules of Love, which was great. I read it. Amazing. If you guys haven't read it yet from our last
Thank you.
episode, you should check it out now, anywhere books are sold, I assume. But so you've done a lot of research on love. You wrote a whole book about it. What do you think, if you look at like the dating landscape now, what do you think is like the biggest issue? Because there's a lot of people who are, I feel like, very frustrated with it. And I mean, from our emails, a lot of women. What do you feel like is the biggest mistake people are making when they're dating?
I think the biggest mistake people are making when they're dating right now is that their list of icks and turnoffs are so long and so wide and so far-ranging that you may miss out on an incredible human being because they wear jewelry and drink their
And spell you're the wrong
matcha
way.
with a straw, right? Like whatever it is. Like, and I started following this really funny TikTok account I think it's called Guy with the List. And what he does, and I don't even know what he looks like because he actually I don't think he's posted himself or her or them, whoever runs it. And what they do is they'll play all these found clips of people all over the internet saying their biggest ick and turn off, and then he'll add to his list. And his list is at like 600 now with all these ridiculous things. And so, and I know it's a bit tongue-in-cheek and it's a bit funny, but I do think it is that. Like, we get turned off so quickly by things that are not actually important in a relationship. Like, I always ask people, like, does this make someone inept at being a good partner, Or is it just something that you don't like about them, right? Is it a preference? And I think that preference versus priority conversation is huge.
Well, that's like, I mean, not to go to Plug City, but on my Netflix special, the opening bit is about how I'm on the dating apps and you get in front of it. The dating apps offer you a menu at a restaurant and you're looking at it and you're going, well, I'm not that type of person. It's not even allowing you to smell the person, be around the person. And you say, I'm not going to date a Darlene. And then if you met a Darlene in a bar that you got along with, you'd probably date a Darlene. Like,
Yes.
I think the ick is a lot of time just excuses to not be vulnerable, to, to say no. It's easier to say no and not do the thing than it is to go into it and go, well, I saw, and then you'd blame yourself once it didn't work out. You go, you should have known they drink matcha through a straw. Like it's easier to do that. You beat yourself up. I think that might be kind of the nature of like, we're the Google generation. This is what we do. We look up the place before we go. We don't walk somewhere unless we Google map, even though we've walked there. Like,
well, it's kind of like, it seems like the issue is almost like there's too many options, right? Where you have dating 200 years ago, you're in an arranged marriage, probably you're just set up and like that doesn't seem great, right? But now it's like if you live in a city like New York City, there's a million people maybe that you probably are in the that you could possibly date. And so you're like, well, because there's a million people here and there's an app that shows me people constantly, why would I settle for someone who drinks matcha lattes through a straw when there's just another great person out there that I could have? And so I think it'd be great to almost go back to that happy medium where maybe you had 10 choices, not none, not one, but not a million, maybe.
I mean, you're speaking about something in psychology, which is known as the paradox of choice, right? This idea that humans actually make worse choices the more choices and options that they have.
Right.
And this is one of the biggest reasons why we are struggling in dating, or whether the products that we purchase or whatever it may be. But yeah, I think the key is, and I like what you're saying, this balance of having enough of a pool to decide, but not unlimited. And I guess what I'm getting at is someone drinking matcha through a straw doesn't define what kind of partner they are.
Right.
Whereas we like the joke that it does, right? Maybe that defines them in so many other ways. And so what I'm saying is actually look at what makes someone a good partner and a credible, compatible companion for life, as opposed to...
To take the other side of that, though, the thing that we find on this podcast, the thing that as a single person deals with, when are you okay to be turned off? When do you allow yourself to say this ick is more of a ugh, and this ick is funny, starts in funny, but it came from a place of this is not someone I need to spend my time on. I'm a detective. I'm looking for clues. When you're out there dating, you're looking for clues to I want to get to know that person. So, the wears jewelry or where sits crisscross applesauce on a chair, you go, that's generally a percent, I'm playing the percentages now.
Yeah.
So it is, it's easy because I see this with the ick stuff online, especially online. You see a lot of men, their feedback to it is like, this is why you're single. And, you gotta look through these things. And it's like, well, this person's also allowed to go, I'm playing the numbers game here of what turns me on and off. And if you do A, you'll probably do B, C, D, and it won't be a match for me.
Right.
So
means, if you're playing the odds, though, that means you're going to have to get through a lot of people, right?
Right.
Like that's...
You need odds to play.
Exactly.
You need numbers.
Well, how long have you been with your wife? Remind me.
We've been together now it'll be 11 years this year.
11 years.
And married for 8 this year.
And she's basically like your only relationship, correct?
In terms of currently before?
No, I mean like in terms of like did you have
His
other relationships before?
Oh yeah, I dated.
Oh, you did?
Before. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I dated a ton before I became a monk, and then I was a monk, and then since I've left the monastery, my wife's the only person that I've chosen to be with.
What's your go-to first date when you were dating?
Before?
Yeah.
Back in the day? I was dating in my teens, so it's like whatever you could afford, right? Like maybe you're going like ice cream, bowling, cinema. Going to the movies. Going to the movies was probably the most common date.
Well,
I think.
Which is a pretty, you say this on in your book that, watching a movie together, watching Netflix
that
together.
rubbed people a lot.
That's like, you hate that, right?
I'll be honest, managing money has always been something I've had to stay mindful about. It feels like everywhere you turn, someone's trying to make you spend. That's where Acorns comes in. Acorns is a financial wellness app that makes it easy to start saving and investing for your future. You don't need to be an expert. Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that matches you and your money goals. You don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you get started with the spare money you've got right now, even if all you've got is spare change. Sign up now and join the over 13 million all-time customers who have already saved and invested over $22 billion with Acorns. Plus, Acorns will boost your new account with a $20 bonus investment. Offer available at acorns.com/purpose. That's acorns.com/PURPOSE to get your $20 bonus investment today. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 6 compensation provided. Investment involves risk. Acorns Advisors LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/purpose.
I'm Cheryl Swoops, WNBA champ, 3-time Olympian, and Basketball Hall of Famer. I'm a mom, and I'm a woman.
I'm Tarika Foster Brasby, journalist, sports reporter, basketball analyst, a wife, and I'm also a woman.
And on our new podcast, we're talking about the real obstacles women face day to day.
See, athlete or not, we all know it takes a lot as women to be at the top of our game.
We want to share those stories about balancing work and relationships, motherhood, career shifts. You know, just all the shit we go through.
Because no matter who you are, there are levels to what we experience as women.
And T and I, well, we have no problem going there.
Listen to Levels to This with Cheryl Swoops and Tarika Foster Brasby, an iHeart Women's Sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. You can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey y'all, Nimini here. I'm the host of a brand new history podcast for kids and families called Historical Records. Executive produced by Questlove, The Story Pirates, and John Glickman, Historical Records brings history to life through hip-hop.
Smash, slam, another one gone. Bash, bam, another one gone. The crack of the bat and another one gone. The tip of the cap, cause another one gone.
Each episode is about a different inspiring figure from history. Like this one about Claudette Colvin, a 15-year-old girl in Alabama who refused to give up her seat on the city bus 9 whole months before Rosa Parks did the same thing. Check it.
And if you get with me, did you know, I wouldn't give up my seat. 9 months before Rosa, it was Claudette Colvin.
Get the kids in your life excited about history by tuning in to Historical Records. Because in order to make history, you have to make some noise. Listen to Historical Records on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, I was talking about this in an interview, and I think there's different responses to it. Some funny, some mad at me. But it was this idea of, I was talking about to so many couples recently, and they were just feeling like they don't feel connected. They don't feel like they're deepening their intimacy. They don't feel like their relationship is growing. Mm-hmm. And I was just saying that, hey, if that's how you feel, then if the number one activity you do is watch a show together, but that show's not leading to an interaction, a connection, a sharing of ideas or thoughts or feelings or whatever it may be, then maybe it's because you're not doing other things together. And what I was extending out to people was this idea that I found, even in friendships, right? This applies to all relationships. They get deeper and better and more intimate and more connected when you're doing other activities together. So I encouraged, obviously, experiences, experiments, getting educated together, learning about something together. When you're growing together, you feel like you're moving in the same direction. Even if you're both doing your own entrepreneurial venture, but you come back and share your notes. Mm-hmm. There's so much more we can get from love and relationships that I think we miss out on. And I empathize with it.
Do you feel like you and your wife, because you're in the same industry, you guys work together? You know,
we don't work together like professionally apart.
Right.
Yeah,
but if you look
guys
at
had a great Gap ad together.
Oh yes, we did that.
That was a project.
Yeah, we did that together.
But
Came out great.
If you look at your social media, like you guys are in the same.
Yes, now we are.
You're peers. You're like colleagues.
Absolutely.
And, so is that helpful, the relationship? Do you ever get like, is there jealousy in that? Like, how do you work? Because working together is great because you're communicating, you have something in common, I would imagine. What's the negative part of that?
So the number one thing I hear when someone comes up to me is, hey Jay, I love your wife. Like that's like that. And people literally come up to me and go, yeah, you're all right, but your wife is amazing. And I'm like, I know. Like, and that's kind of how our life has gone, where I make friends with people because I generally am a bit more extroverted, and I'll go make relationships. I'll introduce them to my wife, and then I'll never see that friend ever again. And they become best friends with my wife. So I'm used to that. I think.
Do you ever, hold on, I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you ever have to kind of like, look, I have, sometimes there's a thing when you put out a lot of stuff into the world.
Yes.
You know,
Content.
You can't, people come up to you and they say things to you that feel pointed. Like, you're okay, but I love your wife.
Yeah.
And that does feel, it feels like they're trying to neg you a little bit. I can understand that.
I feel like they're trying to humble me.
That's what, absolutely. And I would feel the same way.
Doesn't get triggered by that though.
No triggering.
I love it. I love my wife. She is amazing.
But is that how you deal with it? Do you go, well, this is a compliment on me because look at me being with this wonderful person that they love? Do you have to do that ever? Like,
in my head?
I'll have people come up to me and they'll go, oh man, they were just at my show.
Yeah.
Love the charcuterie stuff you do. I'm like, and then I get mad at the other stuff I put out.
Right. What about what you just
What
saw?
about the thing you just saw?
Yeah. That is the exact point of mindfulness training. Like this is exactly.
Jared
this
doesn't meditate. Could you tell?
Yeah, no, but this is
This is my meditation,
This is
talking to
why. This is why when we're having this conversation, it's so alien to people, and it's not because I was born without anger or hatred or any of these things.
Yeah.
The point is that is the point of mindfulness. That when I'm hearing that, my circuit board internally is going, I love my wife. I love that someone else loves my wife. This is awesome, right? Like it's brilliant. And I found that I think if I wasn't secure in who I am and what I'm doing, I think that would trigger me.
Right.
And I think that's what's really interesting. I don't know if you saw this movie. I think it was on Netflix this year called Fair Play.
Yes.
A lot of people haven't
About,
seen
like,
it. I'm
the
glad.
finance.
Correct. Yeah. So it's based on a couple. It's a movie. This couple are madly in love. He's just proposed. They're about to get married, but they both get put up for the same promotion at work.
Okay. Work at a hedge fund.
Yeah, at a hedge fund. So they're now competing in an ultra competitive environment for the same job. I'm not going to tell you anymore if you haven't seen it. So I'm laying it up so that you watch the movie, but the movie does a great job of showing like gender roles, people feeling emasculated, like the challenges that come in the bedroom because of the intimacy, you know, everything else that goes on. And so I recommend watching the movie. But I think a lot of that comes from us feeling irrelevant, insignificant, or unfocused on who we are. And I think when you feel a sense of calm and confidence about what you offer and what you don't. So I do agree that if I didn't know what I was doing for work and I didn't know who I was, then I think that kind of stuff would really trigger me. And so I've constantly tried to work on who I am and who I want to be.
Right. I think all triggers, like you said, are kind of come from a place of insecurity. But I mean, I feel like there's a sense of being secure in who you are, but there's certain, I mean, everyone has some insecurity. Do you have any insecurities?
Yeah,
that, like,
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be totally vulnerable, I think I get, you know, insecure. There's a few things. I'll dive straight into it. One of it is, I think that sometimes when I meet people, again, this is the 1%, not the 99.
Right. And we have to say that.
We have to say that.
It is so important to say.
So everyone knows that people mostly love us.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like sometimes I'm insecure that when I'm around someone that they're wanting me to say something wise all the time. So I have an insecurity of like, God, if I don't say something profound and wise, and in the past, I would really overthink that. I'm sure you have this for being funny, right? Like you have to be funny. So if I'm not wise in a room and you're not funny in a room, then we've lost the room, right? Like that feeling. And so I used to carry this around.
Has it turned around now? Because I used to, someone, you haven't been very funny. I just go, well, good luck. And then I move on from the person. I go, we are not. Do you now do you change?
I had that. I used to carry that around really heavily, and I used to feel so much pressure.
Yeah.
And I would feel stressed, and then I found I wasn't even present, and then I found I'm not even listening because now I'm trying to say the right thing. And I let go of that, and now I just act like myself. So if I'm tired, I'll be tired. If I'm exhausted, I'll be exhausted. If I'm buzzing, I'll be buzzing. If I'm trying to be funny, if I'm being in a banterous mood, I'm just going to be because I'm just so much more comfortable in my own skin now.
I'll say it. For someone into like, if you're like, hey, what do you do? And you're like, well, I do mindfulness. I'm, you know, I like to, you know, I was a monk, and they go, well, I haven't had my life changed yet.
Yeah.
Like for someone to react like that is such a piece of garbage.
But sometimes people are looking for it too, right? And I think, so that's one thing. And then I also get in insecurity. So I've definitely had that, and I carried that for a long time. I think that sometimes you have an insecurity of people feeling like you think you're important. So it's kind of like you walk in a room and people assume that you think you're important or that you've bought into your own hype.
Right.
And so now you're trying to kind of make
Prove them wrong.
Prove them wrong and make sure that
right,
everyone realizes that no, we're cool. Like,
I'm
you know,
humble, right.
Yeah, we're all on the same page. Like, we're cool.
You're so lucky you're not single. Because this is what women do to you. And I'm saying women do this to you. I'm just saying, I know this.
Please tell me.
As a single guy.
I think men do that too.
Of
I used
course.
to get, you know, when I was single, so are you funny? And I'd be like, well, it depends who you ask.
Right,
You tell me.
But that's a great answer, because you're not trying to appease, and that's what I found. You're not trying to appease the person, and you're also not being rude.
Right.
And it's just an honest answer, and you're just being real. Like, that's a very normal response.
That answer will always, I think, disarm the conversation.
It's a great answer, and you're right. It is, no matter the gender. If you're single, this is what you deal with as a single, because you're dealing with variables. You have people that are coming in and trying to make a move on you, or be flirty, or be funny, and show who they are right away. So it turns into, oh, you're not that great, and it's like, that's not you didn't have to say that. You didn't have to say I was great. I'm just here to meet you, you know?
And that's the thing with dating. I think that you do the best when you're looking for the positive, as opposed to when you're trying to almost, you come in defensive, or you come in trying to, you know, make the person feel like you're good enough for them. And that's why people do things like that.
Well, I think so often in the dating scene, we're trying so hard to make someone like us without even knowing whether we like them. Right. So we go into him like me. Right. And then they like us, and we're like, wait a minute, do I even know who this person is?
Right. And you can't know that when you're 22. Like, that's just the thing. Like, that is aging too.
Yeah.
Like, so much of this isn't genius. It's growing up and going and being self-reflective. Like, it takes time, because I know exactly, you know, when I was 25 starting comedy, I remember this guy sat next to me in a bar. Oh, and I said, I'm a comedian. It was like the first time I ever said it. He's like, tell me a joke. And I'm like, and I take out like no cards. And I'm like, who is this one? He's like, well, you're gonna have to work on that. I'm like, I guess you got me. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I know that feeling, but I think that's 38, I would never do that.
Yeah, it's that feeling of people trying to get you. I carry that insecurity. I feel like sometimes I'm in a room and I'm like, all right, someone's just trying to get me. And that's an uncomfortable anxiety and nervousness to carry around. And I was speaking to, you know, people who are far more, you know, successful and everything else than I am. And they were saying to me, like, just the amount of anxiety they carry, because every word they say is going to be analyzed, overanalyzed, printed, scripted, put out there for the world